Dear colleagues, this is Korkut Yavuz from Halal Vision, a trademark of 10K Consulting. This is an informative video on the series of halal standards published by the Standards and Metrology Institute for Islamic Countries, SMIIC, which is an affiliate body of the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. SMIIC has been established in 2010, and since then, the Institute has prolifically produced a series of halal standards ranging from halal food to halal cosmetics, halal tourism, halal quality management systems, and many other products and services. In this video, our intention is to give you a bird's eye view on this ecosystem of SMIIC's halal standards and halal certification approach. There are two things you should know about SMIIC standards. First and foremost, these standards were negotiated, drafted, finalized, and approved with the contribution of technical experts, standardization experts, government representatives, and religious scholars from over 40 OIC countries. Every member state of the OIC and SMIIC can send their representatives to SMIIC's technical committees where these standards are developed. Every country has an equal say. Producers, manufacturers, service providers, and other stakeholders also have the opportunity to express their opinions to the technical committees through the General Secretariat of the SMIIC. In this sense, the SMIIC halal standards are fundamentally different from some other halal standards where a single country or a small group of countries see themselves in a position where they dictate the rules on what is halal and what is non-halal, and expect every other country to follow them without having any say in it. The second aspect of SMIIC's halal approach is that it's based on internationally recognized normative documents. I'm talking about ISO and ISO OIC standards, such as ISO 22000 for food safety management systems and ISO 22005 for traceability in the feed and food supply chain. These international normative documents represent the best practices at an international level, and the SMIIC halal certification scheme is based on these best practices. With this in mind, let's start with OIC SMIIC 1. The OIC SMIIC 1 standard lays down the general requirements for halal food. This is one of the first standards published by the SMIIC, and this is quite understandable because when you think of halal and haram, the first thing that comes to mind is food. This standard first came out in 2011, but the latest version is the one that was published in 2019. It lays down the rules on sources of halal food, rules of slaughtering, specific rules for food products and services including meat, eggs, milk, and dairy products, beverages, genetically modified food, food processing, machinery, utensils, production lines, storage, display, hygiene, sanitation, and food safety, validation and verification, identification and traceability, packaging and labeling, and so forth. The standard makes many references to internationally recognized best practices and normative documents, such as the Codex Standard 1, General Standard for the Labeling of Prepackaged Foods, CAC RCP 1, General Principles of Food Hygiene, CAC RCP 58, Code of Hygienic Practice for Meat, ISO 22000 for Food Safety Management Systems, ISO 22002, the Prerequisite Programs on Food Safety, and ISO 22005 on the traceability in the feed and food supply chain. The next standard is the OIC SMIIC 2 standard, which lays down the requirements for bodies providing halal certification. It lays down the general principles such as principles of Islamic sensitivity, commitment to Islamic values, and a risk-based approach which halal certification bodies must follow. It also lays down general requirements and rules on legal and contractual matters, halal certification agreements, use of licenses, certificates, and marks of conformity, structural requirements, resource requirements, rules on auditing and auditors, information requirements, process requirements such as initial audits and halal certification, sampling, inspections and tests, recertification, and so forth. The OIC SMIIC 2 standard also has a section on the management system requirements for halal certification bodies. Just like OIC SMIIC 1, the OIC SMIIC 2 standard is also based on already existing internationally recognized normative documents. These are ISO IEC 17021 for bodies providing audit and certification of management systems, ISO IEC 17065 for bodies operating product certification systems, ISO IEC 17000, which governs the vocabulary and general principles of conformity assessment, ISO IEC 17020, which lays down the general criteria for bodies performing inspection activities, ISO 17025, which relates to the competence of testing and calibration laboratories, ISO 9000, which lays down the fundamentals and vocabulary for quality management systems, and ISO 22003, which lays down the requirements for bodies providing audit and certification of food safety management systems. Now let's talk about the next OIC SMIIC standard. This is OIC SMIIC 3, which is the standard that defines the requirements for halal accreditation bodies, accrediting halal conformity assessment bodies. If you are familiar with the concept of accreditation, then you would know about the ISO 17011 standard, which lays down the requirements for accreditation bodies accrediting conformity assessment bodies. The OIC SMIIC 3 standard is very, very similar to the ISO 17011 standard. One might even describe it as the Islamic version of the ISO 17011 standard. So these three standards, OIC SMIIC 1, SMIIC 2, and SMIIC 3, are what I would define as the main pillars of the SMIIC halal certification scheme. This scheme is fully compatible with the logic behind the multilateral recognition agreements of international accreditation associations such as EA, APAC, IF, and ILAC, which represent international best practices. The SMIIC certification approach applies the same logic. It's quite simple, really. You have the standard OIC SMIIC 1, which lays down halal-related rules for food products and services, so producers and service providers know which rules they must comply with in order to receive a halal certificate according to OIC SMIIC 1. Then you have another standard, the OIC SMIIC 2, which lays down the requirements for halal certification bodies. Receiving accreditation according to SMIIC 2 means that the certification body in question is competent to issue a halal certificate for a producer or service provider that demonstrates compliance with OIC SMIIC 1 or other relevant OIC SMIIC standards. And the accreditation body must meet the requirements laid down in the OIC SMIIC 3 standard, which I just mentioned. So, how do you make sure that the accreditation body meets all these requirements defined under OIC SMIIC 3? The answer is peer evaluation. Exactly the same as the best practice applied under EA, IF, and ILAC. Actually, there's a paragraph in the OIC SMIIC 3 standard that reads, quote, "In elaborating the standard, it is intended that the accreditation system planned to be developed under SMIIC or in the OIC member countries is not isolated from the world and disconnected from the practices under the multilateral recognition agreements of regional and international accreditation associations such as EA, APAC, IF, and ILAC. In this video, we covered the first three standards of the SMIIC halal approach. SMIIC has developed many other standards, which are available for purchase on SMIIC's website. In the next video, I'll talk about other SMIIC standards, such as the OIC SMIIC 4 standard on halal cosmetics and OIC SMIIC 18 on halal quality management systems. On a final note, Halal Vision experts have been involved in the development of all of these OIC SMIIC standards, and we provide training and consulting for all of them. If you're interested, just go to halalvision.org for more information or send an email to info@halalvision.org. I hope to see you in the next video.